What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the ridiculously ruthless Dr. Disaster. And for as blind as EA has been in many regards over the past several years, one thing that was likely glaringly obvious for them to see was just how badly Dragon Age the Veilguard was going to bomb. They could see what it was going to do to their bottom line.
She's a vicious, life-sucking bitch from which there is no escape.
Of course, when Dragon Age the Veilguard was set to release, everyone in the media was posting glowing reviews of the game and talking about how it was going to be the biggest thing ever, but based on the trailers that we saw for this turd, and based on the gameplay footage and the character design, gamers could tell that this was a title that was going to bomb spectacularly. And let's face it, EA was certainly hoping for a different outcome, but they knew this game was destined to flop as well.
Oh no!
I mean, after all, stories have come out explaining the nightmare development cycle that accompanied Dragon Age the Veilguard. Apparently, the game started off as a traditional RPG type game that was going to be similar to Dragon Age Inquisition, but then at some point someone among the higher-ups at the company decided that they should turn the fourth Dragon Age game into a live service game. And then, after a few years of trying to do that, they decided to switch it back. The Veilguard ended up taking 10 years or so to make, and with all of its problems during development, I'm sure that this scared EA off from the franchise even before it came out, and we saw how poorly it was received.
How about a hug?
You stay the hell away from me.
And I'm sure that is why we are seeing this right here. It sounds like there was talk about a potential remastered version of the original 3 Dragon Age games being released, kind of like the Legendary Edition release for the Mass Effect trilogy, but EA put the kibosh on that. My guess is that they saw how incompetently the Veilguard was being put together, and keep in mind that they're claiming it was going to be harder to remaster these games for whatever reason, so this set likely would not have come out until well after the Veilguard's release, but EA likely saw the writing on the wall with the franchise. They realized what was going to happen after the Veilguard hit, and they said,
No! 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 No!
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, I've begun uploading some content onto Rumble, so make sure you follow Dr. Disaster over there, and don't forget to follow me over on X, where my handle is Dr. Disaster1. I keep a list on there of games lousy with wokeness pinned to the account at all times for your reference. Dragon Age the Veilguard is definitely on that list, but the previous 3 entries from the franchise are definitely not, and it's too bad that we will not see re-releases of those titles. But really, Dragon Age the Veilguard has sullied this IP to the point of no return, and I'm quite sure that EA is well aware of this fact, and that they have been well aware of that fact for some time. After all, Mass Effect now has a 5th game being worked on. That's the only thing BioWare has going on at the moment, and that game was greenlit despite the fact that Mass Effect Andromeda, just like Dragon Age the Veilguard, it was generally rejected by the fandom, and it left a bad taste in everyone's mouths, but the Veilguard was bad on a whole new level, so unless BioWare really proves that they can bounce back from all of their failures with Mass Effect 5, I highly doubt they will ever get the green light for another Dragon Age game again, at least not for a very long time. Their last 3 releases after Dragon Age Inquisition, not counting the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which obviously was not new content, but the last 3 releases have been crapped on pretty hard by gamers. Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem, and Dragon Age the Veilguard, all of them flopped. It has been 11 years since they have released anything that people actually liked, and the Veilguard took up almost all of that time in its development cycle, and it ended up being the stinker that we saw last October. So with all of that context in mind, let's read this article here from IGN. It says here, former Dragon Age franchise boss Mark Dara has discussed BioWare's difficulty getting a remaster of the series' first game off the ground, and why it would be a much tougher project than Mass Effect Trilogy's re-release. Firstly, speaking about the future of the Dragon Age series after the mixed response, yeah, that's a euphemism right there, definitely wasn't a mixed response, the Veilguard was largely hated. But after the mixed response to last year's Veilguard, Dara told YouTube channel Mr. Matty Plays that he was not sure how a new entry in the series would get started. Dara has spoken in the past of how BioWare is now a single project studio, and with the company now slimmed down in size and solely focused on Mass Effect 5, that leaves Dragon Age on pause for the foreseeable future. Yeah, and the reason for that is directly tied to the shitty job that BioWare has done in the past decade with development of the Veilguard and Anthem and Andromeda. These games were absolute turds, and the tone that this guy is striking here, where he makes it sound like the studio is a victim of some unforeseen circumstance, I don't appreciate that sentiment at all when the size of the studio is currently based entirely on their performance. It is a result of BioWare screwing the pooch with the Veilguard so badly. That is why a massive chunk of BioWare employees lost their jobs, and speaking about this subject in any other way is simply obfuscating the truth. But after explaining that at one point BioWare floated the idea of a remaster of the first 3 Dragon Age games, the article then says, so why hasn't a Dragon Age remaster happened? Well, according to Dara, a lack of enthusiasm within publisher EA is at least partly to blame. EA's historically been, and I don't know why, but they've even said this publicly, they're kind of against remasters, he continued. I don't really know why, and it's strange for a publicly traded company to seemingly be against free money, but they seem to be against it, so that's part of it. My dude, they aren't completely against remasters. They did the Legendary Edition for Mass Effect after all. They just have no confidence in Dragon Age any longer, and who can blame them? Clearly, BioWare has been clueless about what to do with the franchise for a long while, and EA could see the damage which the Veilguard would do, and that is definitely a factor, because the way it's described here, it sounds like the Dragon Age remasters might take some time to do for whatever technical reason, because it was going to be hard to make them. It says here, the other problem is, Dragon Age is harder than Mass Effect to do. To some degree, unknowably harder, maybe only a little bit harder, maybe a lot harder, Dara pondered. One of the very earliest things for Joplin, BioWare's initial version of Dragon Age 4, before its multiplayer reboot, and before the subsequent single-player version that became Veilguard, was, let's do Frostbite tools, and then let's find a mod house that seems talented and just uplift them and pay them to do a remake of Dragon Age Origins. But if that was the free money that this guy suggests it would have been, I promise that a greedy entity like EA would have been all over that. In truth, it sounds to me like they have been scared off by the franchise. They have not had faith in Dragon Age for a long while, and based on the product that we ended up getting with the Veilguard, I can't blame them in the slightest, but I do blame the makers of the Veilguard for their part in ensuring that we never get a remastered collection of those first 3 games. I would have played the crap out of them, but now, well, it simply isn't meant to be. In any case, I'm going to leave it there. drop your contempt for modern BioWare into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.